Hey, Mr. Toney.
Hey, Mr. Toney.
Yo, Mr. Toney.
Imagine a childhood with no mom or dad. Imagine a childhood with no family at all. For over 70 million children in the United States alone, this is reality. Adoption can change a child's world, and it's one option to offer thousands of kids a family and a different life. Kids who have nothing need something, and that something should start with a family who is devoted to loving and caring for them. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Resources, there are over 73.8 million children in the United States alone that need adopting. You may be adopted or know someone who was adopted, and they can tell you that if they were not adopted, it would be hard to tell where they would be or what their life would be like without their adoptive parents devoting their time and love to giving them the best life possible. Adoption is the best gift that a child can receive, and giving the gift of adoption to a child who would otherwise have a life of trouble and sadness can be the most rewarding chapter not only for the child, but also for the adoptive parents. In the next few minutes, I'm going to discuss with you the definitions of domestic adoption and international adoption, as well as how to choose the right adoption agency and some celebrities that were adopted. I'll also share with you the benefits of adopting a child and the benefits for adoptive parents that may change the way that you look at adoption. When people think about adoption, they think of someone adopting a child from a faraway country, and then they get their child as soon as they apply to adopt. However, the adoption process can be a bit more challenging than this, and takes a lot of time and effort to make sure that you are choosing the right adoption agency, and it can take some time to choose where you'd like to adopt your child from. First off, there are two different types of adoption. These are domestic adoption and international adoption. And once you decide whether you'd like to adopt from your own country or from another country, you must choose an adoption agency. There are tons of great adoption agencies all over the United States, and it all depends on what you're looking for at the time you want to adopt. First off, let's discuss the main definitions between domestic adoption and international adoption. According to internationaladoptionhelp.com, domestic adoption is when you adopt a child from within the same country that you live in. And with domestic adoption comes intrastate adoption, which is when you adopt a child from within the same state that you live in, or interstate adoption, which is when you adopt a child from another state. Determining whether you'd like to choose intrastate or interstate is very important because the laws affecting these are different. Also from internationaladoptionhelp.com, international adoption is when you choose to adopt a child from another country. But international adoption can be a bit more challenging than domestic adoption because you have to meet the requirements of not only the state, but the U.S. and foreign governments and the Hague Convention. The Hague Convention was an agreement signed in 1994 by the United States that safeguards intercountry adoptions and establishes international standards of practices for intercountry adoptions. And this is also from internationaladoptionhelp.com. You must be aware of all the requirements, but ultimately the details should be taken care of by the adoption agency that you choose to register with. Choosing the right adoption agency can be tricky and can require a lot of effort and research for finding the best one for you and your family. And since there are more than 1,700 licensed private agencies in the United States, it's almost impossible to keep up to date with all the operations of all the agencies. However, there are several ways that you can check on the reputation of an agency. www.adoptionagency.com gives us some simple guidelines to follow on once you've narrowed down your adoption agencies to a few choices. The first thing you'd like to do is contact your state licensing specialist. Quoted from the site, the state licensing specialist will be able to tell you if the agency is in good standing, if there have been any complaints lodged against the agency, and how long the agency has held its license. So now that you know the definition of domestic adoption and international adoption, as well as how to choose the right agency, it's important to not only know why parents may choose to adopt a child, but also why the children are given up for adoption. Children are adopted out for a number of reasons. The parents may not be able to take care of them the way a child should be taken care of, so they're forced to make the tough decision to let another parent adopt their child. And this, of course, varies depending on the family or the individual. A book called In On It, Why Adoptive Parents Would Like You to Know About Adoption, is a book by Elizabeth O'Toole. She gives us reasons why children may be put up for adoption. In the case of infants, the book states that children may be put up for adoption for one of several reasons. The mother may be a minor or very young and may not be socially capable of raising a child. In other cases, the woman may be unmarried and feels that having a child now would interfere with her long-term goals and plans. And in cases of unwanted pregnancies, the child most likely winds up in adoption just for the sake of avoiding an abortion. The book also states that when it comes to older children, it's less common for a child to be put up for adoption and more common for the child to have to be removed from the home. In all too many cases, this is because of neglect or abuse in one form or another. And when this happens, the court must strip the parents of their parental rights and the children become wards of the state. And then the children are placed in a foster care setting until they can be adopted, if they are adopted at all. Also in the book, when it comes to children of special needs, the parents may not be able to physically or emotionally care for the child, and they must put their child up for adoption. But whatever the reason, it does not change the fact that there are still so many children, not only in the United States, but all over the world that need adopting. Hearing these many reasons why children are put up for adoption gives us a good insight as to why there are so many children all over the world that need adopting. When we hear many names of famous celebrities, we don't really think about their childhood or where they came from. But you'd be surprised when I tell you that there are more celebrities that are adopted than you would think. The late Steve Jobs is one of the biggest names in the media, but few people know the story of his childhood. Telegraph.co.uk tells us that Steve Jobs was born to 23-year-old graduates of the University of Wisconsin at Madison. His biological father was a Syrian Muslim immigrant, and because of pressure from her parents because they did not want her to marry an Arab, Steve Jobs' mother flew to San Francisco to have her baby and give him up for adoption. Adoptive parents Paul and Clara Jobs were Armenian and unable to have children. So they adopted Stephen Paul, as they named him, who was born on February 24th, 1955. Steve Jobs was one of the most famous names in the electronic industry, and none of this would have ever been possible without the love and care of his adoptive parents and the values that they taught him. And this is true for so many children that are adopted all over the world. Adoption not only benefits the child, but also benefits the parents that adopted the child. Americana Adoptions gives us a great analogy as to why what the adoptive parents may feel when they choose to adopt a child. The analogy says this: adoption benefits the couple because they now have a child to share their lives with, to teach right from wrong, and to carry on their name. The child gives the parents a reason to wake up in the morning and to go to bed at night. Everything truly revolves around the child, and the parents often wonder why they waited so long to choose adoption. For those reasons, the opportunity to experience parenthood is the greatest benefit some couples could ever have hoped for, which may not have been possible without adoption. And even though I am not adopted, nor am I an adoptive parent, I feel this analogy really reflects what the adoptive parents must feel like when they adopt a child. There are so many benefits for both the child and adoptive parents when they choose to adopt. The benefits of adoption far exceed anything the child may have went through before they were adopted. And giving these examples, adoption can be the best gift that a child can ever receive, if their biological parents are not able to care for them. And whether you choose to adopt domestically or internationally, it may take a while for the adoption process to be complete. But with patience and effort, the benefit of holding your child for the first time will make it all worth it. Although there are many celebrities that are adopted, there are millions of children all over the world that have also been adopted. And for children who have spent most of their lives in a troubled home or in the foster care system, adoption can be the best thing that has ever happened to them. There are still millions of children all over the world who need to be adopted. And you never know, the child that you adopt could end up becoming the next president, movie star, or even famous athlete. But even if the child you adopt is not destined to be a famous celebrity, their life will be forever changed because you decide to devote your time and love to giving the life to a child who truly deserves it. Thank you.